What's up everyone, Jose here, Community Brand Manager with KastKing, and today we're gonna talk about flipping and pitching. We're actually gonna break this into 3 parts. We're gonna talk about what is flipping and pitching, the history of it, and the gear that you need to use to be effective at this shallow water technique. As I mentioned, flipping and pitching is a shallow water technique. So this is not something you're gonna be doing in 30 foot of water. This isn't gonna be something you're gonna have to drop off ledges or offshore or anything crazy. This is literally cruising the bank. You're gonna be looking for brush piles, laydowns, rock piles, things of that nature. Now, what is flipping and pitching exactly? Flipping is literally where you're just gonna flip the bait out relatively close to you from where you're fishing, whether it's a bank, kayak, boat, whatever you're fishing. It's a light flip where you're gonna flip out maybe a jig or a Texas rig, and you're flipping it out. Pitching is the same motion, but you're actually getting it out a lot further. There's plenty of different ways to do that. Some people like to do the old school method of holding out the line, and then you pitch out, you let the line go, keeping your thumb on the reel and allowing the bait to go out. Another one, which I like to do, is I like to hold the bait, and if I'm pitching, I'm able to swing it out a lot farther. So you get a little bit of distance. You can flip and pitch at the same time. In fact, those words cross over quite a bit. You might flip onto a brush pile and then pitch it to get maybe to the other side of that brush pile. Grass lines, laydowns, rock piles, as mentioned. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but flipping and pitching is a very effective shallow water technique. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite ways to catch bass. A little bit of history on flipping. Flipping actually was created by someone using a 12-foot rod and no reel. Of course, this was a long time ago, but a 12-foot rod and no reel, you'd just flip the bait out, the fish would hit it, slam the hook set, and lift the fish right into the boat. Now, we have gone a long way since those days. Now, obviously with high modulus graphite, Toray carbon rods, and reels are decades, light years beyond an advancement of technology. So now, instead of just using a 12-foot rod, which a lot of anglers aren't gonna bring on their boats unless you're a crappie fisherman or something like that, then you're gonna utilize whatever rods that you have, heavy rods, to flip that bait out, catch it, and bring it in. So gear that you would utilize for flipping and pitching is very important. You're not gonna go out there with maybe a light spinning rod or even a medium heavy isn't exactly what you would use. Rod-wise, you would actually really use a 7/6 to 8 foot heavy, maybe even an extra heavy, depending on the water conditions and the vegetation and what you're trying to fish. A high modulus, strong rod personally, I like the spiralis for any type of fishing. The spiralis for me are amazing. Now when it comes to a reel, remember I said that it started out utilizing a 12-foot rod with no reel? There's a reason for that. The drags and the reels back then were not as strong as they are now. In fact, still slamming that hook set can really mess up a reel if the drag isn't set properly. So KastKing took it one step further along with the inspiration from Cliff Crochet, and we came out with the KastKing Deadbolt. Now people say, what's so different? It has no drag, it's direct drive. People say, well, what do you mean? How much drag pressure does it have? Is it completely condensed down? Is it just locked down? No, there is no drag. This is direct drive. So your techniques like flipping and pitching, frogging, punching, anything that you're gonna be cranking that drag down normally and hoping that that drag doesn't slip, this is the reel for you. 25-pound fluorocarbon, 65-pound braid, 30, 40-pound braid. This is the reel for you. So you're gonna get an instant hook set, it's gonna lock it in, and you're gonna be able to really land those fish. Now when flipping and pitching, there's a lot of power that goes into it. You're creating a lot of energy standing there with a 7/6, 8-foot heavy rod, a deadbolt, and then trying to slam that hook set. So you have to be patient with it. You have to allow that fish to kind of take it, you feel the weight, you feel it load up, then you're gonna set the hook. That's a problem that a lot of people have, is that as soon as they feel maybe the bait get hit or that fish starts to lift the bait, they go ahead and go for that hook set. that's not the time to do it. You have to be patient. You have to allow the rod to kind of load up to where you feel the weight of the fish pull it down. Now, if you talk to a lot of maybe old school anglers, they say, oh, as soon as you feel it, you're gonna slam that hook set. That's because they were using monofilament. And monofilament, we all know, has a 15 to even 20% amount of stretch. So you have to really slam that hook set for all that energy to transfer down to the hook. Now, what baits are you gonna use for flipping and pitching? The two most popular ones are gonna be a jig and then a flipping Texas rig setup. The jig, you're not gonna utilize a football jig. You wanna use something like maybe an Arky head would work, or even a brush style jig. It's got a very narrow head. It's gonna allow the bait to drop, and you're gonna be able to do those pops. It's really gonna get into that vegetation to lay down the rocks and not get stuck. It's an amazing way to fish, but it's also a much larger presentation. A lot of people like to use it, a lot of people don't. Personally, I like to use maybe a heavy Texas rig. When I say a heavy Texas rig, we're talking a 3/4 ounce weight, a flipping style hook. Now, like I said, you're using a super strong reel like the Deadbolt, you're using a heavy style rod, you want to use a hook that is not gonna bend. If you're using a regular EWG hook, a normal gauged wire hook, that hook is gonna bend out and it's not gonna be good. In fact, you'll see where the hook comes in, it'll start to bend out a little bit. You're gonna be missing a lot of hook sets. So you wanna use a very stout hook because you're gonna utilize the gear to really set the hook on that. So an extra heavy, maybe even an extra heavy gauge flipping hook, a 7 to 6 to 8 foot heavy rod, which we have a lot of those from KastKing, from the Spiralis down to the Asages and everything in between. And you want to use a reel like the Deadbolt. The Deadbolt is an amazing reel for this because you're not going to worry about drag slipping. You're not going to worry about any of that. So if you wanted to start flipping and pitching, then this is the reel for you. Check it out from KastKing.